wonderful day, everyone, especially to you, Mom Maria Magdalena Bernales.
Today I
Today,
will
we'll be
be
discussing
discussing
about
about
the
the
continuation
continuation
report
report
of Lesson
Lesson
7
7 titled
entitled The
Inclusive
Inclusive
Education
Education.
in the Philippines.
This is Highwin Jean T. Saavedra,
I am Mia Kulinanan.
your reporters for today.
After watching the discussion, you are expected to demonstrate an in-depth understanding of concepts related to inclusive education that promote supportive environments to diverse learners as indicated in the DepEd Inclusive Education Policy.
To reiterate the previous lesson, what is inclusive education? Inclusive education is a process that involves the active participations of students, families, educators, and other community members in the planning, implementation, and evaluation of educational programs and services that meet the needs of all students. It is a way to ensure that all students have an opportunity to learn and participate in their school community's life. To begin with our topic, we will tackle about the definition, school organization, law, plans, policies and programs, governance, learning environments, teaching and support personnel, and monitoring and reporting. Now let's start. The Department of Education has organized the urgency to address the need of awareness of educational opportunities that all the children could avail of. The Department of Education Order Number 72, year 2019 embraces the philosophy of accepting all children regardless of race, size, shape, color, ability or disability with support from school staff, students, parents, and the community. The Enhanced Basic Education of 2013 has referred to gifted and talented children, learners with disabilities, learners of madrasa, indigenous people, learners under difficult circumstances such as geographical isolation, chronic illness, displacement due to armed conflict, urban resettlement or disaster, and abuse child as target groups of inclusive education. Special education needs. The Special Education Senate Bill of 2016 also has defined learners with special needs as children who differ in mental characteristics, sensory ability, neuromuscular or physical characteristics, social, multiple handicaps, and therefore require tailored school practices special education services. The Act includes gifted, talented, disabled, impaired, and handicapped persons in need of social education and rehabilitation services. School organizations. The Basic Education Research Agenda defines inclusive education as a cross-cutting issue implemented through special education or SPED, indigenous people education or IPED, madrasa education, alternative learning system or known as ALS, and alternative delivery modes or ADMs. Special education. It is a part of the education system of the country and is implemented through a specific program of educating students in a way that accommodates their individual differences, disabilities, and special needs. This involves the individually planned and systematically monitored arrangement of teaching procedures, adapted equipment and materials, and accessible settings. The institutionalization of SPED program, Department Order Number 26 of 1997, the Magna Carta for Disabled Persons of 1997 has established at least one special education center for children with special needs in all schools, known as Resource Center for Inclusive Education, that aims to support the integration of children with disabilities through the production of appropriate teaching materials and assessment. It is worth to also note that the Special Education Senate Bill of 2016 institutionalized inclusive education through the institutionalization of at least one special education center in each school division and three SPED centers in bigger divisions equipped with adequate qualified staff and administered by the principal of the regular school. Indigenous people. IPED's program is DepEd's response to the right of indigenous communities and indigenous learners to an education that is responsive to their context. It respects their identities and it values and promotes their knowledge systems and their competencies that are mainstream in the national education system but benefit from some flexibility in terms of curriculum, teacher, and school calendar. Madrasa education. This was institutionalized in 2014 through the standard curriculum for elementary and public schools and private madaris, and then improved with a refined elementary madrasa curriculum, or REMC, in 2011 with at least 15 Muslim students. It is provided in public and private schools within the context of Muslim culture, customs, traditions, and interests through the integration of the Arabic language and Islamic values education. Alternative learning system. The ALS is a parallel learning system in the Philippines that provides opportunities for out-of-school youth and adult or OSYA learners to develop basic and functional literacy skills and to access equivalent pathway to complete basic education. Alternative delivery mode programs. This refers to a program which aims to provide independent, self-pacing, and flexible options of study within the formal basic education system with equal opportunities for learners from grade 4 anytime, anywhere. The Philippine Constitution of 1987 explicitly upholds the protection and promotion of the right of all citizens to quality education at all levels, which requires the Philippine government, among others, to establish, maintain, and support a complete, adequate, and integrated system of education relevant to the needs of the people and society, encourage non-formal, informal, and indigenous learning systems, as well as self-learning, independent, and out-of-school study programs, those that particularly those that respond to community needs. And last, to provide adult citizens, the disabled, and out-of-school youth with training in civics, vocational efficiency, and other skills. The Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013 defined the inclusiveness of enhanced basic education through the implementation of programs designed to address the physical, intellectual, psychosocial, and cultural needs of learners through target-based programs. The Education Plan of 2015 reaffirms the overarching nature of inclusive education for the policy and planning framework for the education for all. Disability. The Magna Carta for Disabled Persons of 1997 mandates the provision of educational assistance to persons with disabilities for them to pursue primary, secondary, tertiary, post-tertiary education as well as vocational or technical education in both public and private schools throughout the country. The institutionalization of SPED programs in all schools established resource centers to provide continuous support to children with special needs in response to the implementation of the Magna Carta. The 2010 Department Order strengthening special education program at the basic education level finance regular secondary schools to train educational personnel and provides the institutions with adequate learning materials. The 2000, 2006, and 2008 memorandum orders contain provisions on reasonable accommodations in higher education. In particular, The Manual of Regulations for Private Higher Education encourages private higher education institutions to admit students with disabilities. Inclusion of children with special needs has been recently promoted in the 2013 Early Years Act, and in 2013 with the Enhanced Basic Education Act encourages the implementation of alternative learning systems to cater the needs of the target group. Gender. The Magna Carta of Women of 2019 compels the state to provide equal access and to eliminate discrimination in education, scholarships, and training. This includes admission, curriculum and educational materials, delivery using gender sensitive language, and capacity building on gender and development, peace and human rights for teachers. In 2013, a joint memorandum was adopted by various government bodies, including the Department of Education, to mainstream gender perspective in local planning, programming, and budgeting.
Indigenous communities in the Philippines have been advocating for almost 5 decades for an educational that is sensitive to and reflective of their cultural contexts, aspirations, and concerns. This advocacy has intensified during the last 25 years in light of increasing number of indigenous schools or education programs established and managed by the indigenous communities, despite the existence of public schools in the area. This highlights the growing dissatisfaction of the indigenous communities with the educational system of the government and the strong desire to provide an education that is deemed appropriate to the children and youth. The right to education is a fundamental human right. Every individual, irrespective of race, gender, nationality, ethnic or social origin, religion or political preference, age or disability, is entitled to a freedom to be educated. Encouraged by the 1987 Constitution, Article 14, Section 2, Indigenous Peoples' education was formally regulated in the 1997 Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act. The latter lays down indigenous people's right to equal access to cultural opportunities, including through the education system, where they have the right to receive education in their own language through the establishment and control of education institution, respecting their cultural methods of teaching and learning. Although Filipino and English are recognized as official languages for communication and instruction, regional languages are acknowledged to serve as auxiliary media of instruction. Article 6, Section 7 of the Constitution. In response to the distinct education needs of indigenous communities, the 2004 Department Order, titled Permit to Operate Primary Schools for Indigenous Peoples and Cultural Communities, allows the school curriculum to be adjusted according to the cultural interest of the community, as long as core learning competencies are cultivated. Based on the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act, a 2010 Department Order on the Alternative Learning System curriculum for Indigenous Peoples' education draws on the Alternative Learning System curriculum while taking into account the concerns of the indigenous peoples. The 2013 Enhanced Basic Education Act reaffirms that basic education is for kindergarten and for the first 3 years of elementary education must be provided in languages understood by the learners. In further mandates the Department of Education to formulate a mother tongue transition program for the first local language to English and for other grades. The SBFB aims to address hunger and encourage learners to enroll, contribute to the improvement of their nutritional status, provide nourishment for their growth and development, and help boost their immune system, and enhance health, nutrition, values, and behavior. Identified as specific and undeserved learners, the 2015 Education Plan intends to strengthen the implementation of the distance learning programs at elementary and secondary levels to reach out to the children who cannot attend regular classes. According to the experts, the main reason of the emergence of child labor in bigger cities are unhealthy family life and economic deprivation. Families strained by financial difficulties cannot cope with the increasing demands of their children and sometimes even fail to provide them with adequate nutrition. Street children. The 2015 Education Plan calls for strengthening the current partnership between government agencies and partners and the Department of Education to reach out to street children and their families and provide them with basic education and other basic services. Coordination across sectors. The 2016 Special Education Senate Bill intends to establish the Bureau of Special Education to institutionalize and manage special education. It is supposed to design an appropriate curriculum and tailored programs and supervise the Gifted and Talented Children Youth Division and Children and Youth with Disabilities Division within the DepEd. It is also responsible for the early identification of special needs and the provision of medical and financial assistance. According to the new 2015 organizational structure of the DepEd, the Bureau of Learning Delivery is in charge of the Students Inclusion Division. At present, the Bureau of Alternative Learning System under the DepEd is in charge of non-formal education. Strengthened in 2004, it addresses the learning needs of all marginalized learners, including IPS education. Madaris is also under the jurisdiction of DepEd. However, most of them are private and locally managed. Development programs and service delivery for persons with disabilities, including education, are managed by the National Council on Disability Affairs, a national government agency with a mandate to formulate policies and coordinate the activities of all public and private organizations dealing with disability issues and concerns. To ensure gender mainstreaming in government offices, from national to regional division and school levels, the DepEd institutionalized the Gender and Development Focal Point System through the 2013 Department Order Number 27. The coordination across government levels. According to the 2016 Special Education Senate Bill, local governments bears the responsibility for special education institutions, the organization of parent and teacher associations, and the coordination with other civil society actors. Basic education management and governance was decentralized with the 2001 Governance of Basic Education Act. Infrastructure. The 1983 Act to enhance the mobility of disabled persons by requiring certain buildings, institutions, establishments, and public utilities to install facilities and other devices sets specific provisions to ensure access to school to some specific groups of disabilities. Curriculum. The 2009 Philippine Magna Carta of Women calls for a revision of educational materials and curricula to avoid gender stereotypes and images and ensure that gender-sensitive language is used. Gender-related modules have been developed and launched in the basic education curriculum. According to the 2013 Enhanced Basic Education Act, national basic education curriculum has to be learner-centered, inclusive, and developmentally appropriate, culture-sensitive, consistent with the principles and framework of mother tongue-based multilingual education, and flexible in order to allow schools to localize and indigenize according to the concerned context. Learning materials. Appropriate learning materials have been prepared to support the IB curriculum open to consultation and translated into 14 languages. Indigenization of learning materials is encouraged in Occidental Mindoro and Oriental Mindoro. Teachers and support personnel. The right of teachers to professional development is enriched in the Constitution, Article 14, Section 5. Yet, with regards to special education, trainings are not provided on regular basis. Ad hoc programs are implemented upon the specific request of local authorities. At the national level, training for special education teachers has been organized by the DepEd, Bureau of Elementary Education. while training on a visually impaired and the multiple disability and visual impairment was provided by NGOs from 2007 and 2009. According to the 2000 Memorandum Order Number 23, Quality Education for Learners with Special Needs, teacher training institutions have to include special education courses at the undergraduate and graduate levels and provide further learning opportunities for qualified special education teachers through scholarship programs, in coordination with the Commission on Higher Education, other government and non-government agencies. The 2009 Philippine Magna Carta of Women calls for capacity building on gender and development for teachers and personnel involved in the education sector. Inclusive Education in the Philippines Monitoring and Reporting. Within the Basic Education Information System, all DepEd offices and units gather relevant data from schools, learning centers, and education programs for the effective planning and implementation of education programs. Proportion of poor Filipinos was recorded at 18.1% in 2001. Based on the preliminary results of the Family Income and Expenditure Survey in 2001, poverty incidence among population defined as the proportion of Filipino whose per capita income cannot sufficiently meet the individual basic needs.
Thank you for watching.